Today we are going to work on our M&M cookie recipe in converting recipes. This recipe we want to double before we begin. We remind ourselves that when using our three-step conversion factor, to make sure we write down the new amount of each ingredient with its unit so that we don't make any mistakes as we work through our doubled recipe. In here, we've been given our conversion factor of doubling 2. So our conversion factor is we're going to times each ingredient times 2. Our first ingredient is 3/4 cup flour. To double that, we take our conversion factor of 2 and multiply. So 3/4 times 2/1 equals 6/4. Now we simplify this because we wouldn't measure 6/4, right? And if we want to visualize, we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters. And we can see here then that we have 1 cup and 2/4 makes half a cup. So 1 and 1/2 cups. One-quarter teaspoon baking soda. Two-quarters simplifies to 1/2. Teaspoon, make sure you write your unit. We have a duplicate, so we know we have 1/2 here. 2 tablespoons of sugar. Okay, 2 tablespoons is an ounce. 2 tablespoons times our conversion factor of 2 equals 4. In our little chart here, it helps us remember that 4 tablespoons equals 1/4 cup. Our new unit is a cup. Our next measurement is 6 tablespoons of brown sugar times our conversion factor is 12. 12 tablespoons. 12 tablespoons converts to 3/4 cup, which makes sense. If 2 tablespoons is an ounce, 6 ounces is 3/4 cup. All right. 2 tablespoons plus 2 teaspoons of shortening. All right, so we have to multiply that by 2. 2 tablespoons times 2 equals 4. 2 teaspoons times 2 equals 4. All right, so that's 4 tablespoons and 4 teaspoons. But look here, we have to make sure we do our convert to our next logical measurement. So here, if I remember 3 teaspoons fits into a tablespoon, I'm going to go ahead and add that extra tablespoon to here. And then I have that 1 remainder, don't I? So I have 5 tablespoons and 1 teaspoon. Checking in over here, 5 tablespoons and 1 teaspoon equals 1/3 cup. Team. So now we know that 2 teaspoons and 2 tablespoons equals 1/6 cup. Make sure you put that on your conversion chart. 2 tablespoons and 2 teaspoons. There it is again, 1/6 cup. Our repeat at 1/3 cup. I need 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. 1/2 times 2 is a whole. I need a whole teaspoon of vanilla. All right, here we go. 2 tablespoons of beaten eggs. Well, team, 2 tablespoons happens to be half of an egg. So this is another new addition for your conversion chart, that 1 egg equals, on average, 4 tablespoons. So I can go ahead and write here 1 egg. And my unit, I write each. All right. Last one, 1/3 cup times our conversion factor of 2. 1/3 times 2. 2/3. That I don't even have to simplify. Wonderful. Now we're going to go ahead and check in with each part of our recipe. We've read it, make sure that we've read it from beginning to end and gotten out all of our equipment. So we make sure that our oven has been preheated to 350 degrees. Done. I have a preheated conventional oven to 350 degrees. And I have also preheated my convection oven, the one with the blowing air, to 325 degrees. Now, I'm going to prepare my cookie sheet with parchment paper or cooking oil. So our parchment paper here, we have our baking sheets. We'll get those ready for us, and we prepare them with either parchment paper or cooking oil. So I have those prepared for myself. I have 2 big ones ready. My next instruction tells me that in a medium bowl, I need to sift together flour, baking soda, and salt, and set it aside. All right, so it's also told me my size bowl, and that I need my sifter, my flour, baking soda, and salt. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get that flour, baking soda, and salt sifted together, and we remember that we do this to, 1, mix the leavener and the salt and the flour together so that it is all evenly distributed throughout our recipe. But we also do it to break up any clumps, make our flour fluffy. If our baking soda or anything has any clumps in it, it helps break all that up. So I need 1 1/2 cups flour. So I have my 1 cup measure, and I go ahead and scoop it in until it's overflowing and level it off with a knife. Don't forget the other half. Now remember, in flour, no scooping in like this. We always use a spoon so that we don't put too much flour in our baked goods and they don't turn out right. Believe it or not, bread with less flour than the recipe called for, than more, actually turns out lighter. All right, so we have that measurement made, and we put those things into the sink, and we put away our flour. Then we have to go ahead and add our 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, so bisodium carbonate. 1/2 teaspoon. And now look at my baking soda. It's got clumps in it. So this is also a great reason we need our sifter, isn't it? So I'll do my best to fluff it up, and then thanks to my sifter, I'll have the right amount. Or it'll be all broken up for me. Baking soda measured. Set that aside. 1/2 teaspoon of salt needed. We always go ahead and level. And then here I'm just gonna mix a little bit before I go ahead and sift. And now our salt can be put away. So go ahead and sift. We break it up, it comes out all fluffy. You can see how it comes out of the bottom all fluffy and broken up, mixing it together nice, breaking up all those clumps that are in there. See that? We don't want clumps like that in our cookies. We want those mixed out. And then here where it gets all to the point where you can't really anymore, I just go ahead and use the back of my hand and get it all through. So now we've done a nice job of sifting that, and the directions told me to go ahead and set it aside. Now it tells me on my directions to cream butter. So creaming is a mixing activity of adding air and starting the dissolving process of our sugars. So we're going to cream together our shortening and our sugars. So it says place softened butter and sugar and shortening in a large mixing bowl. Mix using a hand mixer or stand on medium speed for 2 to 3 minutes until the mixture is pale, light, and fluffy. Use a rubber spatula to scrape the sides of the bowl once or twice while mixing. Okay, so we're creaming our butters. Here it tells me I need 1/3 cup shortening. So in my butter activity, I'm going to make sure that my butter has been out and at room temperature for at least an hour. We try to avoid using the microwave, right? And on my butter here, I'm going to take advantage of my new knowledge that a 1/3 cup here is 5 tablespoons and a teaspoon. Now, things that I know is that a tablespoon has 3 teaspoons in it. So I can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then about 1/3 into there, and we're good to go for our butter, right? So we go ahead and go and do that, and I have my butter measured for my recipe. I'm going to just add that to my mixing bowl, and then I look next, and I have 1/3 cup of shortening. Now measuring 5 tablespoons and a teaspoon of shortening sounds miserable. So we don't want to do that. We want to definitely go ahead and use our 1/3 cup measure, a dry, because we kind of consider that shortening a solid, okay? So we have that and our shortening. And in my situation, I happen to have one of these scoops, and in order to keep my hand clean and for convenience, I'm going to use my scoop to actually get this shortening out of the container. Keep my hands a little clean. And then you can just even use the back of the scoop then to press it down. And then when it's time to level it, I'm actually going to use my scraper spatula that I'll be using with my mixer today. Where is that? There we go. With my mixer today, so that I'm just combining tools and I'm not making more dishes than necessary. So I'm happy with this. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this in the dish sink. Take my scraper spatula that I have mise en place out and ready, and I'm going to go ahead and pack it down. And like I said, I'm going to use this when I'm scraping down my bowl, so I'm not making more dishes. I'm going to make sure my shortening's level. So I got it all leveled off now. And I'll return all my extra here because that's still clean. And I can put my shortening away. Okay. So now my shortening can go in the bowl. My butter is in the bowl. My next ingredient calls for a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, the regular old sugar. And then it calls for 3/4 cups of brown sugar. All right. And interestingly enough, you guys, brown sugar is going to be your granulated sugar, white sugar, with molasses in it. So that's why brown sugar tastes so great. It's got molasses in it. All right. We go ahead and we measure out our sugar. And team, this is a place where you in sugar have a little bit more permission to scoop because sugar isn't quite like flour. It's not all fluffy. We make sure we level like we're supposed to. Add that to our mixing bowl and put it away. And then we move to our brown sugar. Notice I already have my measuring utensils out. And I like to keep brown sugar fresh. I do things like use airtight containers and even add extra plastic wraps. And so this color in here, this beautiful color, is actually a molasses in this brown sugar, in this sugar. That's what makes it so great. And then here in brown sugar, unlike flour, when we're trying to keep things super fluffy, brown sugar, we get to pack it down. So this time you get permission to go ahead and reach in there and even just use the side of your container here to pack it in. All right. So then I do that. I pack it in. I double check, grab a little more, and then so now it's over full, right? And I've packed it in using kind of the side of my container, and now I've leveled it off. So that is, I need 3/4, so I did 1/2, and then now I'll do my 1/4. Again, I just use the side of my container to kind of pack it in. You can even use, like, if you still have it in your brown sugar bag, I dig in there and then just use the side of the bag and your hand to keep it clean. So then we make sure we level it off, even our brown sugar, pack it down great. And now we go move on to our step, right? So here in our mixing bowl, I want to remind you that this is a mixer. It doesn't have a mind. It is designed to mix, crush, and puree things until it can't anymore. So no sticking your hands in here when it's running. We're going to add our paddle. So this style here is called a paddle. The one with the wires is called a wire whip. And we begin the creaming process. We can see if we use that nice room temperature butter, everything kind of combines together better. We learned that if we use the microwave to get our butter to room temperature, it can cause some melting, and then cause some melting in our sugars, causing for a firmer cookie or baked good that we really want. So right now we can see things are combining, right? But they're not well combined. And they certainly aren't light and fluffy yet, are they? So we're going to keep on going for an additional 1.5 minutes or so until that mixture becomes light and fluffy. All right, light and fluffy. At this time, I don't see any shortening or butter up on the side of the bowl that I need to scrape down, but we should go ahead and stop and lower our bowl and scrape it down so that any shortening or butters on the bottom of the bowl that aren't getting to be a part of this can become a part of this. And we can see that all these sugars and the 2 different fats are starting to come together. And just now at this next 1.5 minutes or so, you're going to start to see it become paler in color. That's because air is being added to it. So our step after this creaming process is to add vanilla and eggs and beat it until well combined. All right, so I get to beat it. That means a faster mixer speed until it's combined. So while that is happening over here, this is creaming, I'm going to multitask and I'm going to get that egg cracked open. Because as a rule, I'm not allowed to crack eggs into my main mixing bowl, right? No cracking eggs into here, because if I get a shell in here, I can't tell. Or I'm digging it around, or I have a bad egg, now I've wrecked everything. So in our side dish, we're going to go ahead and crack our egg. We'll get that open and ready for us. Throw away that shell. And then also in the next step, I get to add my vanilla. So I'll go ahead and I'll measure my vanilla actually right into this egg just to save time. But team, we remember I don't get to measure right over my egg. I'm not going to measure over this. Okay, I'm going to measure over something different, like this used up brown sugar measuring cup. So I have my whole teaspoon of vanilla I get to measure. I measure it till it's all the way full, and then I'll just put it right with that since it's going in the same step. And those items can then go to the dish sink, right? We shut up our vanilla right away so it doesn't evaporate off, and we don't want to knock it over. All right, so I have that ready, and I step in over here, and look at how much paler and fluffier that is. That is what it looks like to have your brown sugar, butter, and shortening cream together. We're going to go ahead and we're going to turn this off, lower our bowl, and mix and then go ahead and scrape it down. So I'm going to go ahead and scrape it down, all making sure I get all the way down at the bottom here. After I do that, I'm going to add my egg and my vanilla, like my next step tells me I can. Then I always just use my paddle to kind of scrape off my bowl. And I'll just turn it on a little bit lower at first so I don't accidentally splash the egg out. There we go. Now we can turn it up. We're going to want to scrape this down at least one time. And remember, the directions told me to beat it. Beating is at a faster speed, because that's telling me that it's trying to continue to add some airs and incorporate, well, it incorporates things. Now, at looking ahead, our next directions, we get to set aside our electric mixer or hand mixer and use a spatula or wooden spoon. So I have the choice of a spatula or a wooden spoon. And I'm going to stir flour mixture into the cream mixture until it's combined. Not well combined. I'm not going to continue for a little while until combined. Why? Because I'm dealing with flour. And I don't want to overactivate that gluten and make a tough cookie accidentally. So now we're setting aside our mixer, and we're going to move over to the counter and stir in our flour mixture until well combined. All right, I can do that. Until combined, not well combined. Make sure you clean off your beater paddle here really good. If you're using a hand mixer, those are usually called beaters, and they are a combination of your wire whip and your paddle. If you're using a stand mixer, you'll often will get a paddle like this or a wire whip. So when you're making mixtures like cookies or cakes, you want to use this, not the wire whip. That's for making whipped cream or whipped egg whites, fluffy things. All right. It didn't say I had to do it slowly, so I'm just going to dump it all in at one time. Right? And it says just to stir it together until it's combined. So I'm going to go ahead and get to it. After that, I get to add my M&Ms. So oftentimes, even if your directions on a different cookie mix might allow you to use the mixer to add the flour, you're still going to set aside your mixer and fold in things like chocolate chips and M&Ms by hand so that you don't break them with the machine. You don't want crumpled up M&Ms, right? So everything's coming together. Also, at this part here, team, no touching as much as possible. The heat from your hand will start to melt your shortening and your butter, and we don't want to melt that yet. We want that to start happening in the oven, not out here in our hands. We'll get a different cookie. Okay, so we've mixed it until combined. I don't see any more flour, and I'm going to add my M&M. So now here's where we're going to just go ahead and fold those in. We don't have to get crazy about mixing it. We just need them to get combined. So we're good. So we'll go ahead and those are all in. We'll keep our scraper spatula close by for the last cookie. We don't want to send this to the sink yet. And then this is where we're going to break out our tools to start creating our cookies. Okay, we've already prepared our sheet pans, right? But now this is where you're going to go ahead and you're going to use something to create your cookies, right? And remember, I just told you, keep your hands out of it. So as much as you can possibly, if you are not going to use a scoop or don't have one, you want to try to move them through it onto the pan as quickly as possible so you're not, again, melting the butters. So you can use a small 1-ounce scoop like this one and scoop them and use the side of your bowl to keep it scraped off and level cookies so that they all come out the same. So there's that method, right? Or there's this method where you can go ahead and take a tablespoon. So this is a 1 tablespoon. And you can take 1 level tablespoon, 2 level tablespoons, and then quickly make your ball and get it onto your pan. See how that's the same size as these? Okay, so that's another option. And then there's just the good old-fashioned spoon, right? So you can just take yourself a nice big old spoon and you can make estimates. And then you can just go ahead and make your ball quick and set it down. Again, trying not to over touch your dough so that you don't start melting the butter in your hands. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and scoop these out. You can keep moving. You can see why this hand tool is a nice hand tool because it doesn't make things so putsy. This cookie does not need to be pushed down. It's gonna melt down on its own to create a nice, great little cookie. And we're going to set these in the conventional oven at 350 degrees for 9 to 11 minutes. But we're going to make sure that we set our timer for 9 minutes the first go, so that if for any reason we need more time, we can add that 2 more minutes or so. But if we didn't need more time, we can't take it back. So if we set it for 11 minutes right away, that first try, then we could overbake them, and we don't want that. And you guys, cookies are not cake. We don't cook them until they're dry, right? Right. All right. So these are going to go in the oven for 9 minutes in the conventional oven where the air is still for 9 minutes, right? And we continue to work forward, getting the rest of our batter, our dough, onto the pan. And we scrape up and use all of the batter and all the dough, cookie dough, on the sides, because all of that belongs as food. We don't need it to go to the wastewater treatment plant. Or the septic. Or whatever. All right, now, if I'm going to have a convection oven, one of those ovens with the hot blowing air, then I'm going to drop my temperature to 325 degrees instead of 350, and I'm going to shave time off. Why? Because the hot blowing air is constantly coming into contact more often with our baked good. And if it's doing that, then it's going to speed up, right, its reactions, and it's going to just cook faster. So these, we're going to check in on these in 6 minutes. 6 minutes. All right, I think I can get one more cookie out of here. First I'll take this. Right, if it's just an ounce, 2 tablespoons, that's a whole cookie. All the cookies. Perfect. All right, so these, we're going to go ahead and we're going to spin around and we're going to put them in our ovens, and we have our our conventional oven over there. Those are already in, and we have convection here, again, lower temperature, and we're going to go ahead and have these, give these a go for 6 minutes. We'll put those in and set that timer. All right, and then as we always should be doing, we clean up in those few minutes because we've been putting things away as we work, because we got our equipment and our things out in advance. It's so easy to quickly now just go ahead and pick everything up, right? So we'll take all this to the dish room, and in just 5 minutes, we're gonna have cookies. Five minutes have gone by, and we have a batch coming out of the conventional oven, and we have a batch coming out of the convection oven. Now make sure for your mise en place that you have yourself a cooling rack set up so that your cookie sheets sit up off of the counter or table just a little bit, okay? And you're gonna wanna let them sit. You're gonna wanna let them be on its cookie sheet on the cooling rack, look at these, for at least 2 minutes before you try to take them off, because if you look here, they're still going to be super soft, okay? So right now, see how they still bend and flex? So you want to let them just chill out on this cookie sheet for 2 minutes at least, and then they'll totally be ready to take off. So now we have a batch of convection and a batch of conventional cookies, all right? So these were in the convection oven with the continuous blowing air for 6 minutes. These were in the conventional oven with still air for 9 minutes, all right? So we see a little bit of a difference in them. One, we shaved 3 minutes off of our cook time. So if you're making a lot of cookies, that could be convenient, right? But they do look a little different, don't they? I would imagine that continuous blowing air would give you different results, okay? And so we remember just letting them rest, hang out on this cookie sheet for 2 minutes. What's happening is carryover cooking. And this hot cookie sheet is just continuing to crisp up and finish cooking the bottom of this cookie while it's out of the oven, and the top can stop cooking and can stop browning, right? So now we can even just see in these few minutes here how if I do this, this cookie isn't bending anymore. So we'll just give it its time to hang out and chill out, and then once we take them off of our cookie sheets, then we're just going to go ahead and put them straight onto that chilling rack, right? We're going to just go ahead and scoop them off with our turner spatula, and we're going to just put them straight on here to cool all the way down then to room temperature. Once you get them to room temperature, then it's safe to go ahead and transfer them into its airtight container. If you put them in the airtight container when they're still hot, the heat and moisture in the cookie will start letting out steam, and any crispiness of your cookie will turn soggy. So make sure they chill out all the way before you contain them so that you don't make your cookies soggy, okay? So these over here on the left that came out of the convection oven have been resting for at least 2 minutes. So then we just go ahead and we use our turner spatula and we move with speed, right? And we just scoop them off and we let them finish chilling, like I said. Enjoy your cookies. If you need to do any substitutions, take notes, right? If you want to use all butter instead of shortening, that will change your cookie a little bit. You'll need to take some notes and decide if you like that or not. So there we go. We got our whole batch of cookies. We've doubled it. We got a nice 2 dozen out of it. So we know now, if we double this recipe, you can write down in your yield that it generates 24 1-ounce cookies. So keep with a size, right? Those 2 tablespoons is an ounce. To keep with a size, things go better. All right, we're going to let those cool and share them with our friends. Have a wonderful day, everybody.